Chapter 597, Dragon and Elephant Prajna Palm. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Divine Dragon's robbery. Zhang Yuochen's center of gravity dropped. He's summoned his genuine chi and golden sparks flew from his fingers. With a fierce clap, he executed the sixth palm of the Dragon and Elephant Prajna Palm. In a split second, a clapping noise came from his palm, and the shadow of a dragon flew out. Boom! The refining warrior stood unmoving, while Zhang Yuochen was sent flying back. He landed over 100 feet away, and then he took another 10 steps back before he managed to stabilize himself. Zhang Yuochen felt a great pain in his right arm. If he had not already reached the bone refining to Jade Realm, giving him boundless strength and very hard bones, his right arm may have been destroyed already. What strong power! It is even more powerful than the strength of a normal monk in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm. Zhang Yuochen demonstrated space moving. In a flash, he jumped through space and appeared once again in front of the refining warrior. With his hands behind his back, he sized up the giant steel humanoid in front of him with surprise. It was just one refining warrior, yet it was already so terrifying. If one could create an army of refining warriors, how terrifying would that be? However, the materials required to make a refining warrior were very special, and the inscriptions carved inside were also quite complex. It would not be an easy matter to create them. Creating a single one would probably use up a huge amount of resources. The refining warrior said. Just then, I only used 10% of my power. If I demonstrated all of my power, even a saintly being in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm would only be able to last 3 to 5 movements. Zhang Yuochen was slightly surprised, and he said, a refining warrior can block a saintly being in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm. A saintly being in 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm was the most powerful warrior below a half-saint. Just one of them could defeat dozens of monks in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm. Without a half-saint, no one could defeat them. The internal conflict between the Red Wish emissary and the Yi was a good example of this. No matter how many people they brought to their side, the leaders of the black market could turn a blink eye. The only thing they could not tolerate was a half-saint getting involved. Not only in the black market, but also in Kunlun's field, none of the battles of succession in the different factions allowed half-saints to interfere. Thus, in a battle for succession, a saintly being in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm, and masters of spiritual power in the peak of the 44th level functioned like nuclear weapons. They could even determine victory or defeat in a battle for succession. Why did the Red Wish emissary do her best to curry favor from Zhang Yuochen? It was because Zhang Yuochen was a master of spiritual power at the 44th level. With just a bit of time, he could reach the peak of existence below that of a half-saint. Even if he could not stand against a saintly being in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm, he could at least shake up an emissary in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm. The refining warrior said, the Imperial Court once did an experiment. 4 refining warriors each held 100 inscription weapon. They set a trap to kill a saintly being in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm. 4 refining warriors? Don't even think about it. Refining warriors are prohibited by the Imperial Court. For my elder brother to give me on is already against the law of the military. If he gave me 4, even if my elder brother was a war saint, he would probably still be punished. Zhang Yuochen said and laughed. Although the refining warrior could not stand against a saintly being in the 9th change of the Fish Dragon realm, it was the most powerful war weapon below a saintly being. Suddenly, the flames in the eyes of the refining warrior suddenly went out, and it stopped moving completely. What happened? Zhang Yuochen looked closely, and he found that the spiritual crystal in the dent of the refining warrior's chest had been used up. It used only 10% of its strength in a strike, yet it has burned through a first-rate spiritual crystal. It burns through resources too quickly. It seems like a holy stone is required to support a refining warrior through a fight. Zhang Yuochen only had one piece of holy stone, and he did not wish to use it. Since he already had a rough gauge of the refining warrior's strength, he did not need to use the holy stone to continue testing it. Zhang Yuochen put the refining warrior away and said to himself, The refining warrior only needs to use 10% of its power to leave me with light injuries. I will need to develop the seventh palm of the dragon and elephant Prajna palm to be able to go head to head with it using 10% of its power. Zhang Yuochen had already analyzed it, and the reason he lost to the refining warrior was not because his cultivation was not powerful enough. Rather, it was because his martial technique was not strong enough. Right now, his dragon and elephant Prajna palm had only reached the sixth stage. This first-rate palm technique was only of the superior spiritual stage. If he could successfully achieve the seventh palm, he would be able to raise the class of the dragon and elephant Prajna palm to the inferior ghost level. The power of the entire palm technique would also rise. The dragon and elephant Prajna palm was the foremost palm martial technique of the Thousand Buddhas sect. Its power was incredible. However, among the geniuses who practice Thousand Buddhas sect, it was very rare for someone to be able to reach beyond the seventh palm of the dragon and elephant Prajna palm. One of the reasons was that to reach the seventh palm, a warrior's masculinity had to increase to 10 times that of a normal person. To reach the eighth palm, it needed to increase another tenfold. And so, very few people since ancient times were able to develop the dragon and elephant Prajna palm to the 10th palm. 600 years ago, a genius from the Thousand Buddhas sect managed to achieve the 11th palm. Just as he reached the next level, he could no longer suppress the masculinity in his body. He spontaneously ignited, and he almost died. Who knows what kind of evil magic he had to practice to suppress his masculinity and save his life. After this, he became a traitor to the Thousand Buddhas sect. He entered the dark side and titled himself the evil monk of death. For these reasons, even though the dragon and elephant Prajna palm was said to be the Thousand Buddhas sect's foremost palm technique, very few people practiced it. The difficulty of the practice was no deterrent, but the slightest carelessness could cause death. The seventh palm of the dragon and elephant Prajna palm is called dragon and elephant furnace. It is the dividing line in the entire set of palm techniques. Countless people have practiced for their whole lives and have not succeeded in learning the seventh palm. But, once it has been learned successfully, the masculinity in one's body will increase tenfold and the power of the palm technique will reach a new height. Even with the lesson of the evil monk of death before him, Zhang Yuochen did not feel a trace of fear. He began to practice the seventh palm without a second thought. Just because the evil monk of death could not do it, did not mean that Zhang Yuochen would not be able to do it. To practice the seventh palm of the dragon and elephant Prajna palm, a warrior had to either go to a masculine place or a burning place. With the aid of the external environment, he could master the technique successfully. The scroll world did not have a masculine place, but it did have a burning place though inside of the body of the Cyan Fire Xuanwu. Even though the Cyan Fire Xuanwu had been dead for countless years, its body was still enveloped by flames like an eternal furnace. Zhang Yuochen entered the abdomen of the Cyan Fire Xuanwu and sat down cross-legged. Closing his eyes, he began to recall the spell for the seventh palm. He chanted, with the body as a furnace and Yang Qi as the fire. The outside trains the shell, and the inside trains heaven and earth. To practice the dragon and elephant Prajna palm was to gather masculinity in the body. When the palm technique was executed, the masculinity burned like a flame. In an instant, it burst out with incredible power. Of course, it was dangerous to hold over 10 times the normal amount of masculinity in the body. If anything went wrong, the body may spontaneously ignite or even combust. Following the spell, Zhang Yuochen performed the palm technique while he absorbed the surrounding fire. Each time he struck, a part of the flame was turned into masculinity and stored within his body. Some was stored in his blood, some in his bones, and some in his organs. After 3 entire days, the masculinity in Zhang Yuochen's body finally reached a level 10 times that of a normal person. Zhang Yuochen's body had turned completely red, like a hot, human-shaped piece of metal. He radiated horrifying heat. Close observation suggested that his blood and flesh were burning. Fortunately, Zhang Yuochen had practiced the treasured body of 3 spirits. The physical quality of his body was better than that of a saintly being, and he was able to endure tenfold masculinity. Dragon and elephant furnace. Zhang Yuochen struck out ferociously toward a mountain in front of him. A near-piercing dragon and elephant roar rang out. At the same time, a giant hand flew through the air and crashed against the mountain. Boom! The mountain shook. Immediately after, there was a loud crash. Part of the mountain had broken off in a landslide, leaving behind a giant handprint. The rock around the handprint showed signs of melting. Some lava even dripped down. One strike was able to cause so much destruction over 1,000 feet away. No wonder it is the seventh palm of the dragon and elephant Prajna palm. Zhang Yuochen looked at his palm. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and instead he shook his head gently. He had spent 3 days to condense 10 times extra masculinity into his body, but it had been used up in one strike. The masculinity in his body returned to its usual level. This showed that his palm technique practice had failed. Zhang Yuochen was not disappointed at all. After all, even a failed palm technique had such great power. If he truly achieved the seventh palm, how powerful would the strike be? Zhang Yuochen re-entered the abdomen of the cyan fire Xuanwu and continued practicing. The second time, Zhang Yuochen was able to condense masculinity much quicker. In only 2 days, he had already accumulated the necessary amount of masculinity. However, just like last time, after one strike, his masculinity was like a deflated football. It was another failure. Failure. After failing 5 times in a row, Zhang Yuochen stopped to analyze and consider the reason for failure. When the dragon and elephant furnace is successful, the masculinity within the body should be endless, and it shouldn't be used up all at once. Perhaps I should form a cycle of masculinity within my body. Zhang Yuochen's eyes brightened. He had finally found the key to the problem. He had the wrong idea the first 5 times. He had been oversimplifying the dragon and elephant Prajna palm. Thus, he eagerly began his 6th practice. After 2 days, he had finally gathered the masculinity he needed.